Yes, it is here.
I will recuse myself. Jane does. She already told you? Yeah. I'll take care of that.
It just saves you from that awkward situation.
All right. Oh, yeah. How you doing? Oh, yeah.
Good job.
All right. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, December 8th meeting of the Asheboro City Council. Welcome you all here and appreciate you being here. We'll remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. So just be aware there are other people outside this room that may be watching. Please join me at this moment. Stand with me and join me in a moment of silent meditation, and we will follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, as many of you know, the Asheboro High School men's soccer team made it to the quarterfinals of the state tournament this year, championship tournament, and lost that game 1-0. Is that right? 1-0? 2-1. I'm sorry, and which is at that level is a heartbreak for anybody that has to lose. We wanted to make mention of their success and publicly congratulate them on what a wonderful soccer season they had for Asheboro High School, and certainly it is the farthest a soccer team has ever made it from Asheboro into the state playoffs. John and I have been scheduled to go to the school board meeting on January the 12th and present them with the Asheboro Pride Award and make a little bit more of a splash for them, and we felt like that was a lot easier than having the whole team show up here tonight. Those of them that are not playing another sport or otherwise engaged with something that would keep them from being here. So we will make an appearance on behalf of the city January 12th at the school board meeting.
They actually lost to the Ultimate State Champion, too.
Yeah.
Pardon?
They lost to the Ultimate State Champion.
And I went to most of the playoff games this year, and they had quite a team. Just one of those things, it's a shame somebody had to lose. On item 4, we're going to talk about the Zoo City Social District regulations and a modification of the social district. And since I am a property owner in the social district, I will recuse myself from the discussion, and I will ask Mr. Moffitt to preside on item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mock, if you don't mind, for the first thing, asking for a vote to.
We have to have a
Yes.
vote for me to recuse myself.
You've asked, and now they just need to formally approve.
I'll entertain a motion to recuse Mayor Smith from the item number 4 on our agenda.
So move.
So moved by Ms. Heath, second. Second by Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. So, Mr. Suggs, if you'll please continue with item 4 for our consideration.
Thank you, sir. I will start off by saying there will not be a specific ordinance in front of you tonight. There will be required votes. And the reason for needing to get the votes is because, as you may recall, with the decriminalization effort on local ordinances, if there's to be a criminal penalty, and there is one associated with a violation of the social district rules, you you've got to have 2 votes. And they have to be one at the first introduction, and then a second one. So tonight, we'll get votes on if you don't mind, on substantive provisions, where you give me guidance on exactly how you want the ordinance structured. And then that ordinance will be brought back to you at your January 5th meeting for final action on that.
Now, is the structure separate from the 2 diagrams we have in front of us? So that's 2 separate items?
It's going to be, it's all one item, and you can decide in your discretion if you want it all as a combined motion or if you want separate motions, but we will discuss the maps first.
Very good, thank you.
Okay? And I'll ask Mr. Nuttall if he wouldn't mind helping. If you wouldn't mind putting up option A, and you also have hard copies at your desk of that. Option A, you'll notice that the blue is the area that is currently within the Zoo City Social District. Option A has yellow on Church Street going from Sunset Avenue south and stopping basically at Hill Street. That is based on the discussion that occurred at the last council meeting about the very specific request that was received. Also during that meeting, there was discussion about trying not to piecemeal it and not have people have to keep up with multiple appearances asking. So I'm going to give credit to Justin Luck in the planning department. He has interacted with Downtown Asheboro Inc. and the chamber and tried to get a good sense of where there might be future developments. So Mr. Nuttall, if you wouldn't mind going to option B. Option B is designed to try to make this as efficient as possible, and where we think there's activity that might go on and would warrant your consideration. Staff is not taking a position to advocate, so I'm looking for your guidance. You're the policymakers, but one possibility to account for what we believe is potential interest that would avail itself of the social district is this option B. Once again, you see the blue, that's the existing district, but you'll notice the yellow shows where there's the potential to expand the district. And I will begin on Church Street where there was the initial request. One area where the staff has raised the possibility of expanding it beyond the discussion of just going south on Church is that there are 2 entrances, as I understand it, Positanos, which was the focus of the last request. So some people could come out into the parking lot there at the farmer's market. This is designed to deal with the situation where if you walk out on Church Street, you're still in the social district. If you walk out in that parking lot under option B, you're still in the social district because it's being expanded to include the city parking lot. Keeping in mind, and please feel free to interrupt me at any point, but just to explain the theory on this, you'll notice that the yellow does not extend all the way to the upper parking deck. It was felt that it was easier to mark the boundary before you go up those steps to get outside of the district. The same thing, it does not take in the landscaping, stay within the parking lot, and it still stops there at Hill Street on that side of Church Street. And you're close to a crosswalk where it's proper to go across to the eastern margin of Church Street. Then as we come on down, the proposal, and everything within the yellow would turn blue if in fact you decided to expand the social district. It comes down and it follows, once you come across that crosswalk, it's on the eastern margin of Church Street, coming down the curb line to Academy, goes across Academy, it stays on the north side of the Academy right-of-way, goes east on Academy to Fayetteville Street. At Fayetteville Street, it follows the curb line, and then it'll head north on the western margin of Fayetteville Street up to and including Sunset. And then it goes on, because we understand there could be some activity happening on Trade Street. So it goes on to Trade Street. And I do need to point out the yellow, you'll notice, goes slightly past Trade, and the reason for that is purely a practical matter. If you're trying to post signage and being aesthetically pleasing and give a readily recognizable demarcation for it, there's a crosswalk if we go a little bit beyond, and a sign that we can already use, and there's already a trash can there that we could use for the boundary at that point. So then it heads west on Trade Street up to north where we're already at for the district. So all that would be included. So one of the first issues, and I can go on to talk about the text, but one of the first issues that we're looking for policy guidance on is certainly fine to go with option A, which is very narrow on the first discussion. Option B, which, as I discussed, is expanded to try to deal with where we think there might be activity in the next few months. And then, of course, any other option that you want to discuss. And I will pause there before I move on to the guidance I'm looking for on the text portion.
Would you prefer that we act on this first and then act on text as we discuss and move forward, or?
If it suits you, I'll be happy to go ahead and discuss the text, and I can defer completely to what your preference is.
Okay.
What you'd like to do.
Review the text for us, please.
Okay. The text question is you don't have an ordinance because I feel like it'd be overstepping my authority to push, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I do think there are issues that have to be looked at. And this is coming up because of changes in state legislation that happened subsequent to your initial adoption of the social district ordinance. One of those pertains to a management and maintenance plan that the legislation makes clear has to be adopted. The one area that it also clarified is that you have the ability to delegate the authority for that management and maintenance plan. I have not asked, I know there's been some informal communication, I have not asked Downtown Asheboro, Inc. about this, because there again, I don't think it's appropriate. You may very well not want to do any delegation, and I don't want to get ahead of where the governing board may be. But one of this, it gives the example in the statute that private entities can be an entity that has delegated the authority to work on that management plan. And the management plan has very realistic and real impact. And there's a certain reason I want to ask if you would like the ordinance drafted to, one, authorize staff to reach out and see if Downtown Asheboro, Inc. is even interested in it. I don't know that they are. If they are, there is some advantage in having stakeholders involved in that discussion because it gets you into the issue of design. I'll use one example that also has been clarified with the state statutory changes. There needs to be uniform signage. One of the clarifications that came out is that with uniform signage, and I need to emphasize this also goes back to the map, just because someone's in the district, they may choose to participate or not to participate. It's still their choice. But if you are a non-permittee, you don't have an ABC permit, you can choose to participate in the sense of allowing people, if they've got a properly authorized social district cup, to come in with that alcoholic beverage in the cup, and they'll be fine if that's what you want to allow. But the change in the state statute is to make it clear that you can put it in your ordinance, and I'm working on the assumption you would want this put in your ordinance, is that they can't go in unless a uniform sign is up stating that that particular location is participating.
So the default is they're not.
So no signage is required to disallow. It's permission-based.
Not exactly.
You don't see the sign, don't go in.
Don't go in there. It's one way of trying to alleviate the problem of a non-permittee having to enforce the ABC regulations. If you don't see the sign, you can't go in there. And what you can imagine, if you're going to say you have to see a sign to go in, you need to have a uniform signage so that everyone can be playing by the same rules.
Possibly a uniform location for it.
Exactly. All that is what a management and maintenance plan is needed to try to make that more effective in working. It's also good to try to communicate it to people, to give you an example of that. If you don't want to participate, this doesn't apply to you. But if you do want to participate and you're a non-permittee and you put the sign up stating that people can come in, while they're in there, you have to give permission to law enforcement to be able to go into the same location within the establishment that the customer can go. So if you have the sign, if a person can come in with the social district cup, law enforcement can come in during that same time period that they can come in. Likewise, you have an obligation, if you choose to participate, to put up signage, just like I was talking about with Positanos. If you have a means of ingress or egress that happens in one space, one place, to adjoin the district, but at another location to not adjoin the district, to post that so that someone doesn't inadvertently walk out the wrong door carrying their container and go outside the district and being subject to being charged for an open carry. or open possession, I should say, open possession violation.
Ask a question about.
Yes.
With the signage for that, does that language change that you can take alcohol purchased in one location into another place that sells alcohol?
Well, that's a great question.
That's the permittee designation. You know,
Okay.
if you're an alcohol permit holder, you can't take a drink from another place in there. Is
Well,
that
that's the
correct?
second
That's
question
what
I'm
I'm
gonna ask
asking,
you.
because I was just recently in Silva, in Jackson County, and I noticed in their social district, there were places that did not sell alcohol, and they had signs up that said, your social district drinks are welcome in here. But in places that did sell alcohol, I did not see such signage, so I was wondering if this new language from the state included taking alcohol from one alcohol establishment into another alcohol.
You've asked a very perceptive question, and that also is a point that I'm looking to get specific guidance from you about.
Previously, it was clearly no.
Exactly.
Right.
Previously, it was clearly no. State statute prohibited that from occurring. Under the revisions that have happened, that prohibition has been removed. But, having said that, it still means you have to make a decision at the local level how you draft the ordinance. So while the state prohibition is gone, the local ordinance can still prohibit it, or you can allow, like I said, assuming people participate, that one permittee, as long as they're staying in the social district and they're carrying the beverage in an approved container, you can purchase the beverage from one permittee and go to another permittee's location.
So we've gone full circle and we're back to brown bagging.
Well, it has to be,
Less maybe the bag.
I don't wanna go down that road and confuse it.
Yes.
It has to, all that, you still have to abide by
You know,
all the rules of the social district.
Is there and that's probably what you're investigating, a vendor-specific option? I mean, you know, if I were a permittee and selling, off the top of my head, I don't think I'd want that. But on the other hand, well, what the heck, you know, they gotta have a drink, they wanna come over here and eat. Well, that's business too, so I don't have enough experience as a vendor to know how I'd feel about that.
And that very good policy question is what I'm looking for guidance on. I'll tell you from a management standpoint, as far as regulatory, it's better to make it one way or the other.
One size fits all.
For the social district ordinance, to either say it's permissible for you to go into these places. Like I said, it still depends if you want to participate or not.
And I would think that we'd want guidance from those who are within the social district, because what that provided before was, I get overserved at one location,
Right.
and I go to another location, and then there's a question is where did I get overserved? Was it where
Correct.
I am or where I was overserved?
That is
So
correct.
it provided the permittee some security in that regard.
Right.
So I think we probably.
It makes the
in-
specific cups of dubious value to hop like that too. I can see the complication from a liability standpoint if you've got host liquor liability and the inadvertent rare person gets overserved. Then they wander in over here, but that's where they have their accident and they didn't even buy anything there.
You have quickly and
That's-
succinctly stated
I
why
see a-
policy.
I see a blurred complication here that's an unintended, I'm not sure how this got to be a good idea to start with, but
Well, I think.
it's my first blush at it.
I think the impetus is if you go to one location, they serve only beer, but somebody might want a glass of wine with their, you know. and
I can see if
can't
you,
go to that location. 'Cause
if you had a downtown ballpark, for instance, and you left with your dinner drink, the ballpark's a permittee is too, you can go on in with that one. Perhaps, I mean, you know, you can find a good and bad story for any scenario.
So at the end of the day and all of that, to make it clear what I'm looking for and the motions or the approach you take can take any format you think is more convenient. I'm looking for clear guidance on which map or another map you would like to use, because it will have to be specifically referenced in the ordinance. Also, are you interested in delegating authority to at least inquiring if a private entity, specifically in this case Downtown Asheboro Inc., is interested in developing that management plan? Now, I will say, even if it is delegated, there is a sentence in the state statute that says the ultimate decision-making authority remains with the governing board of the municipality, or if it's the county. So the way it would be envisioned in the ordinance working is they would work on it. If you delegated that authority, they'd be authorized to talk to the various stakeholders, develop a management plan, but the final plan, or if there's an amendment to the plan, would ultimately come back to the city council for approval. But
Is the going back into some other vendor's place, is that an item of the management plan, or is that part of our ordinance?
that has to be part of, if
Okay, so-
if you're a permit, if you're going from one permittee to another, that has to be dealt with by the ordinance.
So the way we have, and we can, by ordinance, restrict the going in from bar to bar with a drink.
You can keep it as it is right now. which
And
is-
then if we come, it might be easier to take smaller steps, and I'm probably editorializing at this point, but I apologize.
No problem.
Part of our discussion to take smaller steps, that's a whole lot easier than unraveling something we don't know what is, maybe this quick. But to frame what I believe Jeff has given us for our discussion purposes, if we would, we have three items to discuss, even though we can combine them into one motion should y'all choose. The first one is A or B on the map. The second one is the consideration to have staff confer with DAI to see if they're interested as manager. And the third would be to, I'm gonna call that open vendor, closed vendor for transport. So,
Do
if
we have
anyone,
to designate, excuse me, Walker, do we have to designate the delegated authority in our decision?
In the sense of, if you're gonna delegate authority, we need guidance as far as, because the ordinance would be the one, is the vehicle for delegating that authority. So it needs to be able to specify to whom, or to which entity is that authority delegated.
so two has a A and a B, if we want to delegate, and B, a suggestion as to whom.
And Jeff, for two, just a point of clarity here, since I serve on the DAI board, do I need to recuse myself from that discussion, or?
So long as we're not talking about appropriating funding or entering into a contract with DAI, you're fine.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
only if we cross over.
Okay,
That was
thank
a great question.
Well, starting at the top of our list, probably the most imperative thing would be, I'll entertain some discussion on the preferences of option A and B has been presented.
My preference, if we're going to go with this, would be to go with option B, because I don't want to come back every month and add a street and add a street and add a street. I think it's kind of stressful.
That was the guidance you
Yeah.
gave us.
Right, last month. So I
And we've
appreciate you bringing that.
incorporated the new places to open, the old Jed's Sandwich Shop, you've got the front of it, that could change use at any
Anytime.
given minute. I think
Or they could just come in here and ask for an
the
ABC.
the B outline encompasses the footprint as we know it to be for a bit of a future for sure, but that's,
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think that there are several businesses within the map, shown in option B, that have made that request or had expressed some interest in making that request to expanding it to include their property.
And that's our understanding too, and, when the staff worked on these two maps, quite frankly, we didn't wanna have the council back in February, which is only 60 days away, going through this same exercise again.
any further discussion on A or B, just in terms of input?
Do we have anyone who wants to talk about that, that in the districts or post districts or anything?
I can. You can. You wanna-
Well,
They've made the request, and we're fully aware of that, and,
Okay.
if you give staff guidance to, we'll discuss with them the manager role.
well, let's, well,
I know there's members within the DAI that prefer, option B, and I'm sure, not having a public hearing, but I'm sure option B meets the long-term requirements, long-term request of down DAI.
well, let's, being that there's some DAI folks here also, is there any we can entertain some discussion of A and B if that's who we would like to entertain.
And the final document, the guidance we received tonight, Mr. Sugg will bring back January 5
That's correct.
for final review and action for he anticipates a January 15 implementation date.
And we can discuss that with DI. The other option would be a February 1, and the reason for February 1 is if there's uniform signage to be developed, it gives time to get the signs
And put 'em in
made,
place.
posted, and February the 1st works out as being on a Wednesday, so that way it would be in place for the following Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I'd move, at this point, that we direct staff to, explore an ordinance incorporating the property of, option B and exploring, or contacting DAI with respect to their ability and willingness to be the, management and maintenance plan, supervisors, subject to our ultimate approval, and would move to defer any discussion with respect to the permit change in our work.
You want to table that at this time
At this time.
till we know more. That or closed is fine with me. I'm not
Yeah.
wanting to jump all the way off that high diving board this minute myself, but that's just one person.
And again, I don't suggest that we necessarily have to come back in February or March or April with respect to the permit.
We need to be careful about that language, how we handle that. I suspect, councils, that if we are silent on it, we'll end up with the state rule, and that may or not be our consequence. So I just want to caution that we do need to revisit that and decide something at the appropriate time.
I'm interpreting, and please correct me if I'm wrong in this interpretation, I'm interpreting it being tabled. That means that you're staying with the current provision, which would not allow.
That was the intent of my
Okay, all right.
motion. is
Thank
that
you
we
for
not
that
entertain
clarification.
it.
Very good. We have a motion before us for option B. We would like to delegate the management and maintenance plan. We would like a first consideration, for staff to enter with DAI, for them to entertain their maintenance and management of that plan, and to remain with the current vendor-to-vendor, permittee-to-permittee ordinance that we have at this time. We have a motion for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Redding. Could I have all in favor, please say aye?
Aye.
All in favor, all in disagreement, no. There being none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Council, you have your marching orders.
Thank you.
I do.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll call Mr. Mayor back to take over his lofty position. Yes, we did not run aground, grab the helm.
Sitting,
Yes, we think
sitting
we
back
did.
there in the audience, I realized, we had in the past couple of months, noticed that not everyone in the room or out in the hallway, which we have none tonight, can hear our discussion very well. And the microphones are not picking up very well on the YouTube broadcast. So, when we discuss, we need to talk to the microphones, if we will, please. Try to direct a little bit more to the microphones.
We might need some longer.
We may need to get some new microphones, period.
All right, this is the appointed time for public comment period, advertised time, and this is your opportunity to address the council on any items of city business or concern. Now, leading into that, I've got a couple of comments I'd like to make. I know some of you here tonight are here to talk about the Confederate Memorial Statue, and we have been very patient over the last 3 or 4 months. We've not instituted a time limit, which the county does for their public comment period. We've allowed everybody to say what they've wanted to say, and I will ask that you be respectful of the time we spend here tonight. And we've been putting in a lot of late hours for the last 4 or 5 months, later than normal hours for our council meetings. And I'm just gonna ask, if you've got something new to say then we're glad to hear it. If you're gonna say the same thing that you said the last time or the time before that, regarding whatever comments you are here to make, then hold it and contact your council members directly. And just be respectful tonight of the time that we're spending here. So, who wants to speak first? Mr. Roberts, come on up. Oh, and also, if you do speak, and Mr. Roberts is well aware, he's already doing that, there's a list on the podium that we ask you print your name. And the purpose of that is so that when we transcribe the audio tape of the meeting, we get your name right. We can't always get a correct spelling from the audio tape. So, have at it, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Dwayne Roberts, and this is from the Courier Tribune. Well, first let me say, I know the Confederate Memorial is old, but there's new business with it with the vandalism that just came up. But
I promise you, I did not do that.
well, we'll get to that in a minute. This comes from the Courier Tribune, November 19th, 2022. And Vineyard Asheboro awarded a $100,000 grant funds to help businesses prepare for mega sites. And I'm sorry I didn't already have. And also, this comes from News 2, and 129 jobs coming soon to Randolph County. Housing and Wood Products Company, and excuse my pronunciation, Sumitomo Forestry America, Inc., plans to put in place a manufacturing facility and invest $19.5 million in Archdale. And you know, it's just sad that this community and county can't get a break with the Confederate Memorial standing right here in the middle of town. And I was wondering if the investigators had talked to you in their investigation, because you support the resolution to take it down. And I'm not saying that you actually went over there with a spray can and all that, but you might have a link to who did it. And so, yes.
Just for the record, they got our police cars too.
Okay.
They tagged 6 of our police cars behind the police station.
Okay.
And we didn't shoot the transformers in Moore County either.
Yeah.
So we're.
Right, and I know,
Counties.
I know that's not a laughing matter there.
That's a county property, the county's a victim of a crime. City property, the city's a victim of a crime.
Right.
So that the
Right.
Sheriff's Department detectives and the Asheboro Police Department detectives are working on those 2 cases. But odds are, you can tell by their work,
Yeah.
artistic work,
Right.
it's the same
Right.
people.
Okay. And I wasn't aware of the police cars that got vandalized. But,
Yeah, we've been trying to keep that on the download. Somebody will say something that we can tie them all together.
but I'm thinking the theme on the vandalism of this memorial, if we keep doing it, the Randolph County government is gonna get tired of spending thousands of dollars on it and take it down. And you know, it's not like it's sitting in the center in a traffic circle at Salisbury and Fayetteville Street. You actually have to go out of your way to see it, or crane your neck to look to see it. But you know, out of evil usually comes a blessing, as you in a roundabout way mentioned just a few minutes ago. You know, I was there just minutes after I got the word that it had been spray painted. But I went back that evening about 9 o'clock, and I was in awe of just how nice it looked. There's not one bit of evidence of spray paint on that memorial. And after 111 years, the rain stains and the storm stains are gone also. It is as beautiful now as it was when the first time our Confederate ancestors and the civilians of Randolph County and visiting saw it for the first time. So thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
By the way, the monument company down here did the cleaning on it
Yeah, and,
and did a great job. It looks as good as it did the day it was put on.
right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next. Anybody else? Come on up, Mr. Faust.
Thank you. I just want to state a few obvious things. And you don't have to go and see the monument. You don't have to, unless you want to talk to your county commissioners. If you want to talk to your county commissioners, you got to go right past that monument. A monument that was put up to honor people who we know killed Americans in order to preserve and expand slavery. A monument to people who tortured, raped, and killed Randolph County citizens. So it got cleaned up. I don't think anybody here wants to promote vandalism. I think everybody here is trying their best to go about this thing the right way and to say that there is a legal way for people to bring problems to their government, which is what everybody here is trying to do. So all I want to say is I want to correct the record. If you want to talk to your county commissioners, there's no way to do it without going past that monument. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faust.
He's right.
Next. Anybody else? This is your opportunity, and it doesn't have to be a statue.
It really don't
Oh,
have to be.
I'll hang on to 2023.
Okay, we will move on, in the agenda then.
Mayor, on your consent agenda, your next item, item E, we had a couple of council members ask about that. That was the, 4 or 5 years ago, the state, put an order in that if we're working out in the right of way and need to notify the public. Item F, we worked on our schedule last time, that's the follow-on. The item G is the audit contract to extend. We're through, but the auditors aren't through yet. And then, H is some budget amendments, and I is the advertising for January 5, 2023. So I just wanted that item E is, the rest of the items are pretty much on the consent agenda a lot, but item E is special, and for the TV audience, that's why that's on there.
Okay, council, is any other item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I thank the city manager for his clarification of item E and recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Burks to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now, the reason I paused a minute ago like I didn't know where I was going, was I had something on my mind and I didn't know what I was supposed to say. But it took a minute. And before everybody leaves, because by the end of the meeting, there is generally nobody in the room except staff. So, before everybody leaves, I wanted to mention to you that while we've been afraid of rain all week for our downtown Christmas tomorrow night, which is what most of you remember as Christmas on Sunset, which has been expanded to include other parts of downtown. You ride through and see all the decorations we've put up, and I want to say the Public Works and Facilities people have done a great job of decorating the city of Asheboro for Christmas. But tomorrow night from 6 to 9 is our Christmas downtown. It will incorporate most of downtown. There will be carriage rides with horses and marshmallow roasting. Some of the businesses will be open for hot chocolate and cider and whatnot. Santa Claus will be at the rec center greeting children. And this event a few years ago, it's been 4 years since we've been able to do one because of rain and inclement weather and COVID. But prior to that, this was named a top 20 southeastern United States top 20 December tourism event. It is really worthwhile. It is, in my mind, it's a absolutely fabulous way to get the Christmas spirit. There are carolers and musical groups around the town, down different places. So tomorrow night from 6 to 9, rain forecast has lightened quite a bit, and it is on go. We're planning to have it, and invite you all to come down and tell your neighbors. And if you want to share it on Facebook, you can do that. It's on the Chamber of Commerce website and the city website. So that's my commercial for tonight.
Brought to you by?
Now, item 7 is, I will point out that we broached this subject last month in preparation for this discussion, and at that time, we recused Councilwoman Redding because she has an interest in this area, property interest. Her family has property interest in this area. So I will entertain a motion that we recuse Councilwoman Redding from discussion of item 7. May I have that motion, please?
So move. Whoever.
Is he? Mr. Burks, would you like to second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and a second to recuse Ms. Redding. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Redding, you are recused for item 7 discussion. Thank you. All right, I will open a public hearing and call on our city engineer, Michael Leonard, to present the petition for annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was presented at the November 2022 council meeting. Resolution has been properly advertised, and now it's time for public hearing.
All right, and I know there are people in the room that are here to specifically address this petition, so the first person that would like to speak, come on up.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, everyone. I'm Skip Hislop. I'm the Vice President of Oncology at Cone Health. And as you look at the property in front of you, our goal and what we're looking at is building a new cancer center in the city of Asheboro to provide state-of-the-art cancer care to the people in Randolph County and surrounding counties. And with a recent acquisition of Randolph Health, some of the things that have transpired is that Cone Health used to have a joint venture with Randolph Hospital, and that joint venture has ceased, and now Cone Health provides all of the medical oncology, the chemotherapy services, things along those lines to the patients in the community. Unfortunately, we're doing that in 2 different buildings now because of the situation. As you think about care for patients, not the best situation for continuity of care. And what we're looking at doing is building a new state-of-the-art cancer center on the piece of property off of Asheboro Road that is on your screen right now. And what it will do is it'll allow us to make sure that people do not have to travel for the care that they need, that they can receive in this community. Transportation is one of the biggest challenges for any person that's undergoing any type of cancer care. And if you have to leave the county, it has that much more chance of people not being, maintaining, I should say, their treatment of their disease and having the best outcome that they possibly could have. So what we're looking at right now is, talking with all of you, any questions that anybody has, to really make sure that we do this right, we do this properly, and we bring cancer care to the community that we serve already, we currently serve now. We really want to enhance the ability for us to bring a higher level of care to the people in the community of Randolph County. So that's what we're looking at right now. That's what we're planning on right now, and we're looking for everyone's support, and I'm not sure if there's any questions or anything that anybody has to offer as well. Do you know anything you want to share?
So if Cone had bought the hospital, this wouldn't have been necessary.
Excuse?
I said if Cone had have bought Randolph Hospital like was planned or hoped or or erroneously understood at one time, then this would not be necessary.
I'm a representative of Cone Health, and I also don't have the ability to have those decisions and make those decisions to purchase Randolph Hospital.
It wasn't a decision, it was a question.
Correct, correct.
If Cone operated the hospital, you would not have to split the entities. It could have continued as it is now.
You are correct.
I am correct.
You are correct.
All right, sir, can you give us a little more information about your long-term goal for this piece of property in addition to the cancer center?
So right now, we're looking at the cancer center as a stage one, with possibly some other services provided as well. And really, the goal is to make sure the cancer care is provided first and foremost. The space has the ability to be developed up to 150,000 square feet. And right now, the first building is roughly going to be about 50,000 square feet. And based on that information, we're looking at where we're going to place it on the property, what else we're going to bring to the community, and this is the first phase of what this might look like in the future. We haven't gotten to the point of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, to be honest with you. It gives us scalability, which is the big thing in order to make those decisions, in order to do things different.
Any other questions?
What kind of time frame are y'all looking about starting?
I love these dates because I've never seen a construction project hit the date, but I'll say that December 24th of 2024 is when we're looking at caring for our first patient and having the doors open, so roughly about 2 years from now. With supply chain, it's challenging because we're on some things that used to be able to purchase within 6 to 12 months, there's an 18-month to 2-year time frame to get some equipment and get some things, and that's why it's so important that we get moving now in order to make sure that we get the equipment and supplies that we need to make sure that we hit that date.
And for the council, I know the mayor and I have been here, but you're gonna do both the chemotherapy treatment and the radiation treatment.
We'll do everything, correct.
Right,
We'll,
at that
we'll,
one location.
correct. So the linear, so the piece of equipment that treats patient with radiation or invisible x-rays, essentially, the piece of equipment that we have now is about 13, 14 years old. We're going to bring a state-of-the-art piece of equipment, and then that way they're getting things. The people in Randolph County will get the same level of treatment that everybody across Cone Health does.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir. We may call you back up.
Okay, thank you.
I know there are people in the room that would like to speak. Mr. Preacher, do you want to speak tonight?
Yes.
Come on up. I'm not picking on you, but I know you're probably one of the closest property owners.
I'm Don Pritchard. I live right off Asheboro, joining this property, and the only thing I know, I just want to know what kind of barrier or just more like it probably go through.
Screening.
Screening, fence or something. And I'm just learning, I'm staying here to learn what's going to happen, what's going on.
Fair question.
So,
Mr. Nuttall, are you prepared to briefly address what type of screening this might require? And there again, all that, as you know, as a contractor, that will be specified on the site plan that they present,
which I'm sure they will.
meeting our development requirements, but we can get a brief overview of what it should look like.
Yes, sir. We have not received a formal submittal for development for the property. And generally speaking, when we have a land use such as this next to residentially zoned property, we can expect to see probably the third, if not the fourth most intensive type of landscaping buffer against that residentially zoned property that the city has on its books. So there will be a requirement for buffering against adjacent residential property. The ordinance does provide the property owner developing the property some options. So they will have the option most likely to do a more narrow distance of separation with more plantings than would be required if they were to do a greater distance of separation, in which case there would be fewer plantings required. So there is a screen option, there is a buffer yard option, and depending on what they choose to do will dictate that. But it will be, I do expect it'll be at least the third, if not the third of four, if not the fourth most intensive landscaping yard that the city requires.
And that is the most intensive.
The fourth, right, yes, sir, the fourth would be the most intensive that the city requires.
I understand landscaping, but I'd rather have a fence or some type of.
What is the zoning currently on the property?
The current zoning is B2 General Commercial. Council put this property in the district back in 2006, I believe. So there is not currently an option as far as conditions for the property.
But that B2 zoning does have buffer requirements.
Yes, sir.
Based on certain usages. It also has some floor area ratio, some density.
The B2 district is 100% floor area ratio, so it
Well,
does.
but there's parking, I mean.
Absolutely.
Things of that nature, there's some limits to it and some parameters. But other than that, that's all we can know at this time is what the ordinance would allow for us.
Yep.
Could you specifically give us an example of some buffers for B2?
I would say for folks who are familiar with the sheets, how the sheets developed and buffered against the residential property behind it on Dublin, that's probably an example if somebody were trying to use a purely a landscaping type of standard to provide that buffer. I think that's a pretty good indication of what we could see. They certainly would have the option to do a 6-foot opaque fence as well.
Is there anything that you know of at this time, based on information that the applicant has voluntarily shared, because it's not required of them to do so anymore, but do you foresee a special use or conditional use permit happening in this due to their
Yes, sir.
intended uses?
The potential is there for it to require a public hearing due to its location within the watershed. So for a project that exceeds 12% built upon of the total acreage that would be brought into the city, that would trigger a hearing at the council to examine those particular watershed issues. If the built upon area stays under that 12%, and if the project otherwise complies with all the development rules, the approval will be at the staff level.
So without an allocation from our watershed density, the existing density, 12% of the land is all could be built upon at this
Yes, sir.
time. So that's part of it. So you got 88% right there unless they're granted, and those grants are not particularly commonplace, but they're engineered and thought out. I mean, there's methodology for it in the Back Creek watershed.
Mr. Pritchard, where do you live at relative to this property?
Add it.
You live right- I drove down through there and I didn't see very much. Where do you live?
You go past the property on Sparrow Road and turn left.
It's got brown fence on I'm the third house,
Okay,
down on the private road, Country Lane,
okay, that is a private road.
private road.
Okay.
The problem is, I got another problem, because I dealt with the church when they had it, is because my daddy bought the land to start with, and it went on to Mr. Laughlin. I see half the road at the very end, about the last 100, let's just say 250 feet. It encroaches on this land. Well, see, I went to Mark Trollinger or some of the board there and got it signed off that they could never use that road to get onto that land, and they did it. Now, since it's transferred, I'm sure that's probably thrown out the window, or I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that got recorded. Wouldn't that matter council?
All that would be of interest to a title search. I have not looked at that.
And
I'm just saying it's one of the
technically, it
old-
should have
it's one
been
of the old
recorded
schools.
and should be in perpetuity, but that doesn't mean,
Yeah. It's
Well,
just-
if God gave
it
his
was.
word, certainly Cone could honor it.
Do what now?
I said, if God gave his word, they wouldn't use that road, then certainly Cone could.
Well, they not, I wouldn't, no, they ain't gonna use it, it's not good, I mean, it's not prepared for heavy traffic or nothing else, that's, I tell you. Cause I'm sure they had to do a turning lane, I'm sure they had to reduce the 55 down to a 35 so they could do the off ramp, slow down and all that stuff, so. I understand how that works, but.
so the
There's a
actual,
lot, look like me, there's a lot to go on before you ever know what's really gonna happen
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah.
Cause without that turning lane, they're too close to the ramp, they can't get a straight
Can't get
driveway
a straight,
permit, I
yeah.
wouldn't think.
Unless they go across by it or neighbor on, at the end of my road. Produce.
Yep.
So, I just more curious about I mean, I know they got 50-foot buffer zone, 25, but buffer zone don't mean as much, or it does mean a lot, but I just rather had a fence type or,
I think that, Trevor, does that buffer zone vary based on the type of buffer chose? I know in some of our districts, a fence may be a few feet different than, like trees would be 50 foot or something like that.
In general, if the option is selected to install the fence, then the horizontal dimension of that buffer is reduced.
Yes.
reduce.
Mr. Wilkinson, y'all taking notes here.
Yes.
But I
Well-
understand buffer zone, because you got trees out there, well, they just clamp around the trees, they don't have to worry about the shrubbery. I mean, that's what I would do.
I understand.
So that's all I need to know. I
Well,
appreciate it.
and I apologize for putting
No,
you on the
that's
spot.
I've been on the spot worse than that.
Yeah, haven't we all?
Well, there are development challenges, as you guys know. Anyone else in the room that would like to, speak to this request? Anybody? All right, I have a question, Mr. Wilkinson, are y'all, and I'm picking on you because you're the only one I really know, I'm sorry.
Perfectly fine.
Are y'all, you have a plan B if we do not annex you and provide sewer? And that's for the benefit of the council
Sure,
here.
no, absolutely,
I want
no.
everybody to understand what we're talking about and why we're talking about it.
Absolutely.
So if you can briefly give us your plan B.
And I've got with me Dina Atkins, who is, as you all know, leading this project for us, as well as Skip for Cone. And I'll let Dino talk about a little bit more of Plan B, because he's more intimately involved with the building process and our teams. But just do want to stress to the council and, of course, the community and the neighbors that we continue to be extremely collaborative with you all and plan to be with the community as well with this property. We're certainly not anywhere where we have anything finally designed solely because not annexing and annexing would change what a design would look like, as you're aware, based upon city ordinances and the county build ordinances. So we don't have anything solid to be able to show you, but when we are considering this, we are absolutely keeping the community and our neighbors in mind with how this facility would look. So in terms of Plan B, Dino?
Yeah. Well, City Council, I would say, as we've worked on this across the organization, I've probably spent a lot of time across communities outside of Greensboro, looking at what works, what doesn't work. It is absolutely done with the community in mind. We do not move projects forward unless the community has input, a lot of whom, actually very many times, are own employees. So here in Randolph County, roughly 665 of our own employees live here in Randolph County. We take it extremely seriously in terms of understanding the buffering requirements and everything else. And so if we did not do this, we would probably have to go back to the drawing board and spend a lot more time around what that looks like. I will tell you, in my time in seeing this at Cone, to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, this has gotten the attention of the organization very seriously to do this right. I can assure you, I know there's been a lot of discussions in the past relative to this, and I can assure you that as we look at this, we want to do it right. So, I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
So-
do you have in your Plan B I mean, first of all, do you have a service agreement to access our sewer across the city school property?
Are you sure, Skip?
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
we entered into an easement agreement with the Asheboro City School District 2 months ago, was officially signed off on.
And I'm, there again, trying to educate everybody in the room.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So in order to access sewer, we would have to drill underneath the highway that you can see on the map and then connect onto the city school's sewer line. We have worked with the city school board and the city school staff for about 6 months to get that easement agreement in place so they understand what it is our intentions are on that property and the impact that this would have with the school board as well.
And the water is on your property.
It's in the street.
Trevor,
It's-
is it?
It is adjacent,
Adjacent, yes.
Okay.
Adjacent and on the property.
yeah. So
Yes, sir.
water is not an issue.
Correct.
Sewer is.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that, Dr. Cagle told us that absence of sewer would not stop the project.
That's correct.
How, pray
That's what I
tell,
was
will
looking
that
for
work?
in Plan B.
I'm sorry?
Right.
Could you
It would-
explain how that would work?
Yeah, if we did not, I think it would shrink down the size of the capabilities of the project for a master plan. I would just be honest about that, that we'd be very limited. And as we know, as Randolph County is growing, I think we'd be very limited what we could provide in the future.
In our watershed also.
Yes.
Yeah, so Plan B would be a cancer center only. We would not be able to do anything else with that piece of property. It'd be on sewer and it'd be on well water.
Okay, great.
They help.
There again, I'm just
Go
trying
back
to,
up there. It
trying to
would-
let
it would
everybody
be
know
on-
what we're talking about here.
On septic.
Septic.
Septic. We'd have to build a septic.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be able to scale anything and it would be a cancer center.
Interesting.
All right, is anyone, council, any questions? Anyone in the audience wants to address the council? This is your last opportunity. Come on up, sir.
I don't have anything significant to add, but I would just, for speaking for the community.
Introduce yourself and sign the sheet, please.
Sure. My name is Ben Tuggle. Grew up on Spiro Road, own 11 houses within just a few hundred yards of this. Family farm is right down the road, right beside Mr. Pritchard's. And just from speaking to people in the community, you know, it's not something we want to see developed. Obviously, we know it can't stay vacant woods forever. If we were talking about just a cancer center like they were just discussing, I think there would be a whole lot less opposition to it. But with the amount of acreage they've bought and with what they're asking tonight, obviously, there's a lot of concern that, as he mentioned, that this is just phase one. And I think that's the biggest concern with a lot of us that are in that neighborhood. If we're just talking about building, you know, a nice cancer treatment center where there's somebody can get treatment, that's one thing. If we're talking about future development and developing 150,000 square feet, I just don't think this is the area. I mean, I think there's plenty of property out 49, there's plenty of property out 64 that's already going this way, and I don't understand why we would go down this road in an area that is such prime residential area. You know, it's one of the most desirable residential areas in our county, let alone our city. So it's just my thoughts and input.
But you're also missing one bigger thing. That is one of our very few interstate highway commercial interchanges.
Sure.
Even though it's got residential right behind it, it is certainly more valuable to us as retail or commercial space. We don't have, what, four? Four interchanges on the interstate highway in the city, and we've been very concerned about losing one to a nonprofit that will not pay any tax.
And again, I think in the neighborhood, you know, the mind frame that I've been told and the discussions I've had, again, if it was just a cancer center for that corner, I don't think there would be much opposition. But when you're talking about bringing in future development, more development, that then is going to entail hotels, restaurants, gas stations to support it, is that going to start taking over the residential area further in?
That's the nature of interstate highway.
Sure.
I mean, like it or not, that's the nature of these interchanges on the interstate highway. They're limited on their 65 acres with our watershed requirements. They'll be maxed out at what they're proposing to build. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have a big shopping center with a, who knows what?
Sure, no, I understand.
Starbucks.
And again, I mean, I think a small cancer center.
If there's no annexation, there's no sewer to tie onto for a hotel, and if there is annexation, it's a private sewer that they'll be putting in, that'd have to be further arrangements or negotiations made, and given the topography, it won't serve Spiro. The kind of development you're describing will probably be on the east side of the,
Going towards town.
they're just due to the nature of the flow of the
Their
sewer.
sewer agreement with the schools will just barely cover what they need. So you don't need to worry about the sewer going across Spiro Road to the other side or
But-
whatever.
But also to clarify one thing that was mentioned, I'll pose this as a question. Well, nothing that Cone is proposing to put up there would be considered a 501(c) or nonprofit of any kind?
No, what Coney is putting is there is a 501(c)(3).
Yeah.
So do they pay property taxes?
No, they do not.
So it's immaterial whether it's a church or Cone.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's of no value to us.
It's
That's
not-
the point I was trying to make. We'd much rather see it be a shopping center or some sort of retail, commercial development on the interstate than a non-tax-paying nonprofit. But they looked, they see this as their best location, for this cancer center. And
The best one was on Fable Street.
well, yeah, the one we've got, but those of us in Asheboro, those friends and family members in Asheboro that have had cancer and been able to be treated here, understand the value of keeping this cancer center here.
The other thing, Mayor, and again, you and I have been in those talks, but I think the council's aware of this, the public is not. They work 30 miles. They have a zone from Wesley Long, a service area that the certificate of need and the way the Health and Human Services, U.S. Department of Health and Services and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, how they get their drugs and how they get their credits and all that. And this piece falls in that mandatory zone they have to be in. So it's not like they can't go east on 64, for example. They can't go down by the John Deere place. That they would, I'm sure they'd like to, it'd be a lot less expensive. And I think the other thing, Mayor, is, those are our citizens in that facility, and there are our citizens serving treatment, and they are our citizens gonna be employed in there. So I think I would recommend that we annex it, so we at least have police and fire service there if there's an issue.
I personally think that's a debate of service versus location, but I hear what you're saying.
There's a whole different, much bigger debate than this room about certificate of need and.
Oh, this whole thing is a much bigger debate than what we covered tonight. This is a sticky quagmire.
And we've spent 2.5 years, 3 years debating it,
Yeah.
as you guys know.
I will note also, the city council, that for Cone, we're not for profit, so our charity care policies do follow for the cancer center as well.
Yes.
So that's very important. I know with, tax exempt status and our not-for-profit status also allows us the charity care policy.
But that same thing's going on now. Those are the same policies that are operating right this minute. So there's nothing new.
All right, Mr. Leonard, is there anyone else wants to speak, in this discussion? Mr. Leonard, do you have anything to add, before you ask us for to vote, have a motion and vote on an annexation ordinance?
No, sir, not before that.
All right, council will close the public hearing and move to the deliberative phase. What are your thoughts?
At some point in time, now, we'll see a plan of their building and everything, right? And,
Yes, sir. If the council
Not if you
approves,
don't annex it.
if the council
Well, if we
approves the
annex.
annexation ordinance,
yeah,
their next step is to develop a set of plans and bring them back to the Community Development Department for building inspection, fire inspection, and zoning inspection. If you don't approve the plans, they will, it's in our ETJ.
Yes,
So they will still come to our, for zoning. Then they'll go to the, we're doing it all. We would still get a bite at that apple. From their perspective is that severely limits their ability to serve and provide treatment. And they have more providers here in Asheboro than just cancer care.
But, did I understand that if we were not to approve the annexation ordinance, that it was still gonna be built and be built solely as a cancer center?
That's correct.
Our annexation decision is not gonna change whether or not
That is correct.
the cancer center will be built.
That is correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
But it could possibly change the competitive atmosphere with the current operator of Randolph Hospital, that the county has gone way out on a limb to help finance the continued operation of, so that we would even have a hospital, in spite of COM.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
It's not gonna stop the project, it's gonna change the scope of it.
well, yeah, well, that's why we're here.
So that's all the staff has, Mayor. Again, I just put in for the record, the annexation, it's no problem for us to provide police and fire protection, just for the record.
Now, on the lift station, we would maintain the lift station like we do normally on these lift stations we do around?
No, this would be,
So they
those
would
would be
totally count.
theirs only.
It would be their lift station built at their expense and would dump into the manhole, closest manhole, which is on city school, Asheboro City School property.
So it's a problem, then they have to deal with it then, if there's a problem.
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay.
So council, what are your thoughts?
I hate to see us hold Cone hostage for past breakdowns in communication and past opportunities with regard to our local hospital. You know, I think we'd be cutting off our nose to spite our face to do that. And in that regard, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the annexation.
Have a motion by Mr. Swears to approve this annexation petition. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second, Mr. McCaskill. Discussion? Now's the time, people.
Well, I do think it is important, as John said, that if this happens, that we are able to serve them with fire and police security. Still have kind of mixed emotions about it. Anyway.
I think one of the things the council, in making their decision, if the council does not annex it as these gentlemen calmly testified, they're gonna build the cancer center here. That would not preclude them from going somewhere else and building additional facilities and offering additional services anyway. That they're bound by the federal rules on this cancer center, but they already have, cardiology here, primary care here.
Foot and ankle.
Foot and
I've had
ankle
both my
here.
feet done at one.
Yes.
But I had it done here at Randolph Hospital by your surgeon.
And they do surgeries here with their surgeons. As mentioned.
There are a lot of cone practices here. And
And in fairness, there's a new ownership of Randolph Health, and there's new executive leadership at Cone Health. And as Mr. Swears mentioned, yeah, it's hard to forget it, but as I said, at the Chamber of Commerce retreat, the future's just tonight at midnight. I think you have to think forward and the future of healthcare is gonna be more technologically driven and telehealth and all that's out there to be approved by, or worked on, you know, it's changing every day.
I just think it's important for us to let it be known that we have long memories about our relationship with Cone.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know.
Well, yeah.
You know better than anybody.
Yes, sir, I do.
I'm at a loss to why all this expenditure makes sense and the other didn't, but that's not part of this conversation.
It's not. The health delivery system in this country is really difficult, I mean, to figure out now. And I don't really understand why they're doing this and why they have a nice facility there in the hospital already, why they don't use it. But anyway,
Well,
the bottom line is that we need to get.
There are federal rules that say
I know there-
for-profit and a nonprofit can't be in the same building.
Okay.
Is,
I
Gotta be 35 feet apart.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that-
So to that point, once Randolph Hospital was sold and Cone took over the 100% entity of the cancer center, we have to vacate that facility by state law. We cannot operate, I mean, we've had conversations with the state to see if we could put up a wall, what type of barrier, how many feet we need to be apart from that facility. The state will not let that happen via regulation, so we had to vacate the infusion center off that site because we could. We just could not actually move the linear accelerator, the large piece of equipment that's there. So that's why we're currently operating out of the two facilities right now.
And this is not a new rule.
No. this is-
Everybody's known this for 5, 6 years.
And
10,
you
20,
lose,
long time.
if you stay in that building, you lose your federal prescription discount.
So. Yeah, we were not allowed to operate in that building at all. And as it relates to the prescription drug and our regulations with that, we have to operate that within a 30-mile radius from our current cancer center at Wesley Long, since they're under the same license. So as City Manager Ogburn was hinting to, we had to basically take a circle outside of that radius and figure out what properties fell into that radius in the city limits. And as the mayor and manager know, and city staff, we've been looking at properties for well over a year that meet any sort of expectation that we could put a cancer facility on.
And we did a lot of mapping and tried to find you something other than this site.
Correct, yes. As the mayor noted to earlier, there's not a lot of inventory in Asheboro, and as you're all well aware, that's getting taken up pretty much as we speak. So that's why we have identified this site and are planning to build here.
And I'll just know that we said, while we can't speak to the history, on behalf of the organization, I'd say, we apologize, we did not get that jail away, whatever happened. All I can tell you is I've been spending a lot of time here in Asheboro, a lot of good restaurants. And I can assure you, Cone's commitment is to get this right.
Yeah.
That I can assure you.
And to Dino's point, our CEO, Dr. Mary Jo Cagle, has been down here. She understands what's happened. We are all about rebuilding relationships, collaborating with you. I'm happy to give you all my cell phone number and email, and we can talk about plans for the community and make sure we're all on the same page with what's going on as well. It's just, we're trying to provide this service to the community, to the point of, building a cancer center and not including other services. As city manager has seen at our facility in Greensboro, what we're trying to do is bring as many services into one facility as possible, because that's easiest for the patient. And as opposed to the patient driving from one location to another, they can have things done and different providers see different providers in the same day. It makes the patient's life easier. We can certainly follow up with you all as we get closer and more into this process to help you understand what it is we're trying to do. But today's big push is to try and get this building to a point where we can provide these services to Asheboro and Randolph County.
Well, as you've noticed tonight, this is a hard sell.
No, we know. Yeah.
There's a lot of ill will and difficult feelings. As I told Dr. Cagle when she and I met, I don't see this doing anything but hurting our local hospital. But we need that cancer center. We need to provide affordable health care for our citizens. They should not be required to drive out of town for affordable health care.
It's a tough pill to take that intersection off the tax rolls, but
No
that's.
kidding. Come back up to the microphone, please, Mr. Pritchard. Just so we can get you on the record, in case there's ever a question.
No, I'm just sitting back listening, because I can learn more listening than I can talking. But I'm listening. Do we have a cancer center?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious. That's about all I want to know. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out.
We have an award-winning cancer center here that was started, Randolph and Cone collaborated to start that cancer center, and it has won awards, and you would not believe how many, there are people in this room that have been treated there that say, thank God I don't have to drive to Winston
I understand that.
or somewhere else, Chapel Hill, for treatments.
I don't understand, because it's Asheboro. We ain't Greensboro, we ain't Winston, we ain't Charlotte for like another cancer center. If you're gonna go this far.
Well,
It's not another one, it's to replace the current.
the anomaly,
Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's what he was talking about. They have to move out of the one that is at Randolph.
Well, I knew it was a mess anyway.
When-
It's a hospital.
Don, this is the short framework of it.
Okay.
When Cone abandoned Randolph Hospital and didn't
that.
follow through on expectations that at least we had, clearly they did not.
Yeah, I understand that.
And we were told the place was worthless, and then a for-profit entity paid like $18 million for it. So maybe it wasn't worthless, maybe it was. Somebody thought it was.
Ended up paying 12.
They did, and was also some subsidies if they met certain goals and all that. But what happened to, they were for-profit. The laws are such that the for-profit and the non-profit can't occupy adjacent. They have to be physically separated, which is 35 feet. It's just rules for the sake of rules. But so now had another non-profit taken over the hospital, we probably wouldn't be in this boat. Had they followed through on things that we had hoped would happen at least, then we wouldn't be in this boat. But yeah, it's like Dolly Parton said, you know, a fish and a bird, they can be in love, but they can't get together. Where would they live? So there we are. We got a fish and a bird, and they can't live in that boat. And they won't be next to your house. And then there goes the best interchange of water and sewer we got, non-taxable.
I was just a little confused, because I know they,
Well, we are too.
good luck.
The mayor,
We spent 3 years trying to figure it out.
the mayor and I, Mr. Moffitt, spent about 20 hours a week for 3 years trying to
Listening to mumbo jumbo.
save Randolph Health. Yeah, I understand. Still got nightmares. Thank you.
We'll let you decide which one's the
We've
fish
got
and which
a,
one's the bird.
We've got a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Swears and a second by Mr. McCaskill. Any more discussion? I'll call for a vote, and I will make it clear. We will vote for this or against this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to this, say aye. Let the record show that we have one dissenting vote,
And Ms. Redding was
recused.
recused.
Okay, I'd forgotten that, it'd been a long time.
Way back when.
Okay,
The previous hour.
so you have your annexation petition. I will say this, as you obviously picked up on, this is not an easy decision. It's not an easy pill for those of us in Asheboro to swallow, because it can only hurt what we worked so hard to save.
Borrowed money to save.
So,
Body.
I will expect the three of y'all to fight for and lobby for the citizens of Asheboro in the development of this. And make sure that we don't regret this, please.
So welcome to our zoning department, and welcome to our building inspector. We will have expectations, gentlemen.
And y'all swap numbers with Mr. Pritchard and Mr. Toggle, please. We want the neighbors to be accommodated as much as possible.
I don't expect to hear from Mr. Pritchard. I've known him all my life.
All right, so, Ms. Redding, you are reseated. Item 8, Mr. Nuttall. Item 8A is, you have a request for a continuance on the text amendment application.
Yes, Mayor. Due to ongoing discussions and research being directed by the City Planning Board, staff requests council continue this item to the January regular meeting.
Need a motion to approve that continuance.
So move.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Bell is the second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Byron, would you close the door, please? All right. Item 8B.
Captain Hill.
Oh,
Captain Hill, I think it's, Captain Hill, I think it's okay now. Thank you.
they got the word. All right, so we approved A.
Yes, sir.
Item B is a request for authorization to enter into an engineering services agreement with the Wooten Company.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packets is a proposed agreement with the Wooten Company for services related to the proposed Trade Street renovations. The concept, which has previously been discussed with the council. This proposed agreement is for both pre-design and design services in an amount not to exceed $235,000. The scope of the work for the project will include surveying, geotechnical services, traffic engineering, and signal design, as well as all of the necessary services to develop 100% construction plans. It's our goal at the conclusion of this agreement to be able to quickly move into the bidding and construction phase. Thankfully and thanks to the support of the Randolph County delegation at the General Assembly, these design services and much of the construction we anticipate to be funded by a $1.5 million appropriation from the state. As you remember, the desired improvements to Trade Street include enhancing pedestrian access, burying electrical power, as well as replacing utility lines and resurfacing the street. We expect that this project will increase functionality as well as aesthetics on Trade Street. Staff's recommendation is to authorize entering into the agreement in your packets.
Mr. Sugg, would you like me to step aside?
It would probably be best.
Okay. Have a motion to recuse the mayor.
I'm, make a motion that we recuse Mayor Smith in as much as he is an adjacent.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The mayor's recused from item 7B. Excuse me.
For the folks on TV, again, the mayor owns property along Trade Street.
Along with many, many other people.
Yes, so, but he has to excuse himself, right? So, thank you.
Council, Mr. Nuttall has presented item 7B to us for the enter into the agreement with the Wooten Company. I believe we're ready to entertain a motion or discussion as y'all desire.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we approve the short-term agreement to enter into the professional services contract with the Wooten Company.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We'll now reinstate the mayor again.
Okay, 8C is a summary of due diligence efforts which have been completed in connection with property upon which the former Acton McCrary Hosier Mill is located.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Have at it.
Thank you. As you know, upon the recommendation of both the City Planning Board as well as the Redevelopment Commission, City Council adopted a 2018 to 2023 redevelopment plan in June of 2018. That plan identified several downtown properties and projects that were to be prioritized in terms of revitalization. 2 of the 5 projects within that plan involved Acme McCurry property. The 50,000 square foot building next to City Hall was one of the projects within that plan. It was recommended to be repurposed for senior housing. As you know, that project is nearing completion. The remainder of the Acme property on the opposite side of the railroad tracks was a second project envisioned by that plan. The plan advocated for preserving and reusing this structure and property and the approximately 150,000 square feet that was vacated with the former mill no longer operating. Again, we're grateful for assistance of our legislative delegates in the General Assembly. The city did earlier this year receive a $1.5 million appropriation for activities related to redevelopment of this property. Since receiving notice of that funding, the city staff has been investigating potential acquisition of the property. That review included surveying, title work, environmental assessments, and additional research. We have concluded our review and at this time are ready to present an offer to purchase for the City Council to consider. The environmental site assessments previously were shared with City Council. At your places is the Alta survey as well as the purchase offer. The city's proposed offer is $1 million for the property. If you approve and if the terms are accepted by the owner, the property will be acquired as indicated on the survey and further referenced in the offer. Our desire, if possible, would be to close this month if council authorizes this action. I'll note that following purchase, should we move forward, at a future meeting, council will be provided a recommendation from staff related to how best support redevelopment efforts. At this time, there's been no agreement between the city and any party related to future development, but we do expect the property to be repurposed in a manner that supports continued downtown revitalization. Council ultimately will decide how that occurs and what that looks like through future action of the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions. You all have a full version of this survey. Just for the folks in attendance, that is the image of the Alta survey. Again, I'm happy to answer any question. Staff's request of council is to authorize completion of acquisition of the property.
Questions from Mr. Nodal?
Just, Mayor, well, Mayor.
Mr. Nodal.
Yes, Trevor, the shaded portion is the building, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
The survey does include all the way to the pavement, I mean, the property acquisition.
Yes, the bold,
All
yes.
the way to the,
Yes, sir. The bold black line is the boundaries of the property
Not
line.
just the shape.
Yes, sir. Thanks for pointing out. The gray area is reflecting the structure.
thank you.
Will there be any additional environmental site assessments?
At this time, we are not recommending any additional assessments by the city.
Question? Any other questions?
I went through the environmental report, and I'm a total novice in some of this, but it did seem to me that there's a lot of environmental problems with this property, from what I read. And I just wondered, had some kind of ballpark figure of how much money we're going to have to spend to clean this property up. Has there been anything done with that?
I do not have a figure to address any of the contamination on property. I think there's a scenario that could occur where the city seeks to convey the property without doing anything other than disclosing the presence of that contamination.
But the developer, whoever.
Depending on plans, nothing is required of us. I mean, it's not like there's soil to remediate or things of that nature, but.
Yes, in that
Installations, things of that nature.
in the report,
It's clear
the
that
consultants indicated the recommended actions. At some point for the site to be redeveloped, there will need to be remediation done. But it's, I believe it's our hope that we convey the property and let that be folded into the redevelopment costs of the project.
And it's my understanding that these issues are probably no more severe than any developer that does an old mill would experience with just about any property they would entertain.
That is our understanding of this
less.
report.
I was gonna say, I was pleasantly surprised in looking at it that the lack of, problems there. Because I know there are some that were highlighted.
Oil tank is big.
Yeah, there was a distinct advantage that it was on a public water and sewer supply.
Yeah.
All those years,
And had natural gas available.
and had natural gas available, that's correct.
You put your cancer center in that.
It's 35 feet from that bargain you missed.
Is it free?
It's practically,
It'd be damn close.
it'd be way cheaper than this other mess you messed with.
Mayor, I move we approve the, agreement of purchase.
Okay, have a motion. Pardon?
Was that an offer? Well, you offered 0 for the other. If you want to offer 0 for this, and I might start to entertain that.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Bell. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath down there in the pretty Christmas red jacket.
Eddie's outshining me, I think.
Pardon?
I think Eddie's outshining.
His coat is definitely larger.
Yeah, but it doesn't look as good there.
2 or 3
All right.
Kellys in here.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Authorization to complete the acquisition of the property is approved.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item 8D, discussion about increasing from $100 to $150 a monthly stipend authorized for members of the Planning Board and the ABC Board.
Very quickly, Mayor, it's been a number of years since the city instituted monthly stipends for the ABC Commission and Planning Board. In light of the changed economic conditions since inception of that stipend, staff is recommending that the monthly stipend received for attending meetings be increased by $50 to $150. I'll remind you that members only receive the stipend once per month, regardless of the number of meetings that they attend, and they must attend a meeting in order to be eligible to receive that stipend. I'm glad to answer any questions, but we do recommend council approve an increase to those stipends.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, in spite of the fact I did it for 10 years for free, I make a motion that we approve this, because I was instrumental in getting it started to start with, because to ask them to go view each of these properties in these cases, we ought to at least give them some gas money.
Yeah, spend more than that in gas.
So I think it's nominal at best.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Moffett. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Leonard, 9A, you have an update on the traffic study for the intersection of Salisbury and Old Lexington Road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have in your packets, intersection safety study for the intersection of Salisbury and Lexington Road. This study was performed by Ramey Kemp Associates, RKA, to identify any issues that may be present using the data collected over the past couple months, along with the past 7 years of crash studies. This is the area in question. The findings from the study are as follows. From a traffic operations and traffic crash standpoint, there are no functional or safety issues with the intersection. However, because of the concerns at the intersection, and the evaluation team believes that the intersection suffers from a near miss or avoidance problem during operations. Near miss is basically, as it sounds, is where a near miss collision occurs. Avoidance, on the other hand, is where local traffic actually avoid the intersection completely. Therefore, in either instance, there is nothing recorded for a collision or anything like that. Due to these findings, RKA recommended the following options for countermeasures, all of which will require NCDOT approval. The first option will be conversion of the intersection to an all-way stop. This is a simple and low-cost countermeasure that would require all vehicles to stop prior to entering the intersection from any and all directions, and therefore providing safe gaps to complete their maneuvers. The second option would be signalization of the intersection. This is more costly alternative, which will require, once again, NCDOT approval. However, it does not meet any of the MUTC signal warrants, so it could be very difficult to accomplish.
On their nickel.
On their nickel.
It's too close to existing
In
signals.
MUTCD, we know what it is, but.
Manual for Uniform
Traffic.
Traffic Control Devices, sorry.
So there's a manual for uniform traffic control devices is what he's mentioning for the traffic signals.
The third option would be an elongated peanut roundabout, similar to this one on the screen. Given the unusual configuration of the intersection, a standard circular roundabout will not fit appropriately, and therefore the elongated or peanut roundabout could be configured to work with all the existing approaches.
And that's just for shape purposes.
That's just
not
to
the
show, that's
state
not
or
the,
anything relative
that is
to
not, that is not a drawing of the intersection, that's just for illustration only. The final and most costly countermeasure that would be considered was a realignment of West Salisbury Street, form a four-legged intersection across from Winslow Avenue. This would involve adjusting Winslow as well to meet Lexington Road at a right angle. By reconfiguring the intersection, it would remove the complexities involved in making turns through the intersection.
I was surprised they thought that would be more than the peanut roundabout.
Buying a lot of houses.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I guess
purchasing
because I'm visualizing it, making it fit, but the width of Sunset's a complicated matter, but anyway.
Yes, sir.
Got to buy a bunch of houses to get that over there.
Yeah, we're not interested now.
So, in conclusion,
Toll road?
huh?
No toll road?
No toll road, no toll road.
Have flowers.
So in conclusion, RKA submitted the safety traffic report, which you have in your packets, to city staff with multiple recommendations to the perceived intersection problems at West Salisbury Street and Lexington Road. And if council approves, or if council wants us to, staff will forward the report to the NCDOT for review.
I think before we do that, and I'm talking out loud here, it's appropriate to have a little discussion at this point. I'd like for you to inquire with the engineers and see about what it would cost to produce a two-dimensional layout of the elongated peanut roundabout. And if they would be willing to throw any budgetary numbers at that, because if the pure submission of this to the DOT doesn't have a request or a conclusion. I don't know what they would do with it in this particular form.
I think, we would request, we would present this to DOT with the council's request that these intersections be improved here, or as Michael said, what was the term?
Near miss or
Avoidance.
avoid,
Countermeasures.
countermeasure.
With these countermeasures, and then we get busy with the TIP and try to get them improved, but it may help that, and we may wanna forward this on and get it on, in front of them, and see what, if they wanna do a roundabout, a peanut roundabout, or.
Well, the way I visualize this potentially working, and I'm gonna refer to Trevor in just a moment, but, if we submit some more data, we have input as to what we think we would prefer, as opposed to what they would prefer. There's that. The next step in the process, if we have a preference, or at least I personally do, but everybody can have their own too. If we submit that, and then we have a more specific request, and then as it goes through, this project will be coming under the safety budget, and but it's probably going to be large enough it would it would be on our RPO scoring list. Projects that get participation from the local government all of a sudden score meteorically. And if we have a little more of this information up front, that we, what we would like, a two-dimensional layout to at least have discussion with, I can take that to the board, the transportation board, and start working from the top down instead of the bottom up. And then we can possibly look towards through tourism development money to see if perhaps there's some state funds that could be available to us to have our local portion.
Yeah.
And, because if we can raise 20% of this, you can probably get the highway department to do it, if, based on scoring and points, is that?
Yeah, I would certainly agree if the city's able to bring a preferred, solution to this issue, that would very much move the needle in terms of how the property may be evaluated. I think one of the disadvantages that we have is the level of service that the intersection's operating on, as well as the, apparent, crash frequency that's gonna be much lower than other, areas that they probably will focus on. So, I think it would be, if for this project to happen, it would be very likely that the city would have to participate in cost.
And this is what we deal with come up December 21st. We have our next, in our scoring, and the scoring is very important. And we've asked for very little from our peers in terms of support and this sorts of things. So I think there is a direct avenue to success here, but view it more along the lines of like your airport.
Yeah, and,
It's a bargain, but.
right, and obviously we have lots of people interested in the safety of this. So, good old politics always works too.
Well, and
The right people.
And even though we're out of Division 8 and that, the board members from down there, we have a lot of, FaceTime due to Toyota.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Ruben and I can see what Mike Fox can't help us just a little bit.
Absolutely.
That's what I would suggest, and I wasn't advocating spending any money right this minute, but if you could get us a price on what those two items would cost, I think we could make a lot of mileage with that if it's not a tremendous sum of money, if that would. And you could tell us that back at the January meeting, because nobody's gonna do anything over Christmas.
It may not be the money as much as getting in the engineering line to get it.
Well, I'll draw it up, he'll stamp it.
I can draw it up too.
He got to stamp it.
Somebody's got to stamp it, yeah.
I just build them.
I just pay for them.
All right, any more on that?
No, sir.
Okay, 9B is summarization of the formal bidding process and request the award of a contract for stormwater installation, sidewalk, parking lot grading. Yes, sir, Mr. Durham.
Mayor, did I come forward?
Come to the microphone.
Thanks.
Speaking of.
I was reading. Had my head down.
Mr. Engineer, can we go back to a previous slide here? That one. Okay, well, first of all, we really appreciate the city doing this because I know it's a cost and trouble, but as it was mentioned, it is certainly an area of concern for the residents in this area. And the city manager did hand me this report right before the meeting, and I was looking through it. Kind of missed out on some of the Moses Cone Fund, but I was listening to that because my wife has cancer, and I was very interested in the cancer center being built. But I don't think all the accidents, the crash accidents, were listed here. In fact, Vicky's here, she's our HOA president, but just north of that red square is my house, and the red van that actually precipitated my concern that ended up in our backyard is not listed in one of these 5 crashes because it was on June 29th, 21. I looked back on my phone. So my concern is that not all the crashes that would relate north of that square have been tabulated. because a lot of our concern is coming out of Lexington Commons when people are jettisoning to get off of Salisbury or Sunset. So I'm just saying that for what it's worth. I'm not sure we got all the data here correct. And it also doesn't address speeding, which is certainly the thing that you've heard from me for the last 5 or 6 months. But I do think that what you're saying, it makes sense what Walker was saying, the pro tem mayor, because yeah, I read this. It really, I don't think they're going to do much with this because the data does not support.
The study was not directed to your entrance, is the
True, and that has been my main concern, you know.
we were-
But listen, we appreciate it. This is part of the problem, though. This is certainly a big part of the problem because obviously whatever's happening there is going to impact us up there. But I will say that if the stop sign,
Trevor, give him a pointer, please.
all right, doesn't matter. Where Salisbury comes in right there, the yield sign, this is where we really have the issues right in front of Dr. Adams' house. And I heard something about a stop sign. If the stop sign went there and they closed off the yield sign or the yield lane, which is some of our neighbors have talked about, that's where the issue is because people are gunning it to try to beat the Sunset traffic, which causes us a problem trying to come out of our neighborhood or anyone who's coming out of Westwood on the other side because people are using that as they think they're going to Caraway Speedway a little early.
Some are.
And some are, but they shouldn't be.
Why not?
They shouldn't be
It's a
going
nice
80 miles
place.
an hour right there.
It's the same people that stop on the entrance ramp on the interstate highway.
I don't see many people stopping on this.
Oh, they
either.
stop every day
No.
because they don't know how to merge.
Well, they don't, you're probably right, you're probably right, but
Well, anyway,
I think the stop pattern envisions stopping in all 4 directions,
well, and I don't,
so.
I know you're right. They're
That
not gonna put a
handles your
si-
speeding.
There you go.
Make them stop.
Then they can't be going 80 miles an hour.
And
They
that's
may be
been
going
our
40.
difficulty out there at Lowe's Foods.
Yeah,
Lowe's Foods is the first stoplight, well, for the longest time until they put the one at Mack Road, was the first stoplight you hit on
Right.
64 after you left Lexington.
right.
And so the trucks coming through there at 65, 70 miles an hour weren't having to stop until they got to Biscuitville.
Right. And there's no ramp there either. If you're
So,
coming from south.
People are speeding there. You put a stop sign, 4-way stop there. We'll never hear the end of it, but it'll slow the speeders down.
Right.
only thing that'll make is everybody mad.
But I think Mr. Moffitt's point is that the redirection of Sunset or the construction of the elongated is both a traffic calming and a safety support item.
The other thing I was gonna mention, we lived in Troy for about 17 years before moving back here 10 years ago. And if you're familiar with leaving Troy toward Bisco on the Bisco Road, it's a very similar avenue as Lexington Road. Nice homes, a lot of people coming and going. But they have installed a permanent sign on their speed limit sign that flashes what your speed is when you're approaching that straightaway. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's a deterrent to speeding because all of a sudden you realize you're going 56 miles an hour in a 35-mile zone.
Only if you care.
Well,
Yeah, we have.
you see people braking ahead of you, though. You know, it's like, oh, heck, I didn't realize that was
We
my
have that
speed.
equipment and we use it all over town.
Yeah, but it's not permanent. And see, Troy has decided, because they were catching so many people speeding. And you know, the city was at one time patrolling that area. They've kind of stopped now. I haven't seen much activity in the last year or so. But there for a while, when we were complaining about it, it was happening. And I know there's speeders all over town. We talked about that. But it just doesn't seem like there's the focus there as it has been. And that will slow people down when they think they're going to get a ticket.
I think the primary focus that I got from this study, we're talking about the merger of 2 roads and a couple of side streets.
Several side streets.
In general. It took them 7 paragraphs to describe what that is. That right there, I'll tell you, there's something absurdly complex about the way this is being handled.
Probably never should have been designed that way.
No,
No.
it's a byproduct of when they put them twin bridges out there, but that's,
And it's probably, nobody could agree what to do, so
That's right.
they did everything.
some people's going up Sunset and some's going up Salisbury. So,
Well, you know, it's
But-
always been a problem, but I guess because I'm living there now, it's more of an issue because I hear the brakes and I hear the horns and I see the gestures and I hear the yelling. I mean, it's a real problem getting ready to,
well, we agreed there's a problem.
okay, good.
Y'all
I
wanted to
appreciate
study,
you.
we got it done, it brought up the conclusion that we all desired, now we just need step B. Or C or D, whichever you wanna think of.
All right.
Chase the construction.
Thank you very much.
You win.
Really wasn't an issue until this got developed.
All right, back to item 9B. Go ahead, Mr. Leonard.
It's not an issue
Durham
until
just
they did it.
Hey, Mr. Durham, Kerry,
Mr. Durham.
Oh, I'm sorry.
these are not city streets, so we have to give this data to DOT. That's what, and they have to go through their whole scenario.
I understand.
And it is a scenario.
Yeah, but we will push as hard as we can. That's why the council made this investment, so we can go with something in our hands and not just say, hey, they've heard people gripe about this, but they've got millions and millions of road miles, so.
They'll go out there and paint it to one lane and put up your stop sign, we need to ask for what we want.
That's right.
Just don't worry about it.
If you leave it to them, they'll make it worse.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Advertisements for bids for the storm sewer installation, sidewalk, and parking lot grading and paving project for the McCrary Ballpark renovation project were published with a mandatory pre-bid meeting being on November 14th, and bid openings, and a bid opening on, at 2 p.m. on Monday, November 21st, 2022. Only one bidder was present, therefore the project was re-advertised with mandatory pre-bid for November 30th, and a bid opening at 2 p.m. on December 5th, December 5th, 2022. On December 5th, 2022, we only had one bidder present as well. The bid was opened for the project, and the only and lowest responsive bidder was Terry's Plumbing and Utilities Incorporated with a bid of $807,181 for the above-mentioned project. This is well below the architect's estimate of $1.5 million, and staff recommends approval.
Thanks, sir. Questions?
So, and just for the public, Mayor, you heard those numbers correct. 807,000 on the architect's estimate of 1.5 million.
And before anybody changes their mind, I make a motion that we approve.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, Mayor, before we leave McCurry Park, if you've been by there lately, you'll notice that we're really all in. I mean, we're all in.
Yeah.
Everything's gone. The
Everything's
city has
gone.
completed the base work. The, Rogers started, last week.
Footings, yes.
And, they've put their mud mat in and it's begun their concrete work, and I believe they've finished that, haven't they, Michael?
The footings, yes.
Yes, the footings are finished, so
For the
now they'll be.
grandstand.
For the
they'll be
grandstand.
Coming out of the ground for the grandstand next.
Grandstand, okay.
All right, Ms. Reeves, item 9C, you have request for two ordinance to account for the funding needed to immediately, for the one we just talked about.
Yes. In anticipation or in preparation of your approval of the contract that City Engineer Michael Leonard presented, I prepared some ordinances to amend proper funds in order to set aside funding so that we could pre-audit and execute the contract. The first ordinance is an ordinance to amend the general fund. This is to appropriate an amount of $888,000 of fund balance to be moved to the McCrary Bark project fund. This is a little bit more than the $807,000 because, as we have seen, that there are always contingencies that come up, and I'm hoping that we won't have to keep coming to you as often. I was not aware of the $1.5 million architect's recommendation, so it was good that I didn't appropriate that much. I just went with the standard 10%.
That make you feel better?
It does. I just hope we don't get to that amount. So I went with the standard 10% contingency that Mr. Leonard says is common in his industry. So I recommend adoption of the ordinance to amend the general fund, appropriating funding to be moved from the general fund to the McCrary Park Ballpark Fund. I recommend adoption by reference.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the general fund by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Sorry. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. C2.
The next amendment is the second half, is an ordinance to amend the McCrary Ballpark Improvements Fund to receive the funding from the general fund and set up the expenditure line item for the project. The amount, of course, is the same, $888,000. I recommend adoption by reference.
Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the ballpark improvements fund by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, Mr. Burks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It is good to see you here tonight.
Thank you.
Hope you continue to improve, and good luck with your next round.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got something for me? Yeah, okay. Christmas downtown, you heard my spiel. Rat Pack Christmas, that's a pretty neat show I hear on Saturday night, 7:30 at Sunset Theater. Council, you're all invited with spouses to the Asheboro Police Department Awards Banquet and Christmas Party on the 13th at Sunset Avenue Church of God. Fire Department Annual Christmas Party on December 15th at 6 p.m. That's at the Fire Department. Station 1?
Station 1, yes, sir.
Chamber of Commerce Holiday Business After Hours, that's next Thursday night at 5:30 at the Exchange. And we're closed on the 23rd, the 26th, the 27th, and January 2nd. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everybody has a blessed Christmas, and everybody stay safe if you're on the road. And be careful. Yep. Start down here with Mr. McCaskill.
I just have a question. I get a little confused. I get confused sometimes. On the Sunset and Salisbury intersection, are we going to select one proposed intersection plan and refer it to the state? Is that the way that's going to work?
That's the intention, yes, sir.
Okay, so we will select one and then refer it to them, and they'll try to do a thing.
And they'll put us off as long as they can.
I thought we would.
But the
Okay,
one-
I knew
the
that. I
one-
know that.
The one we're selecting is the one with the highest chance for approval, because they do not like to add signalized intersection. That is an ongoing expensive maintenance nightmare now.
And it's too close to the existing.
Yeah, you know, so there's one viable choice in there, that, you know, if you.
At some point in time, we will be asked to select that intersection, right, the one we would like to see
We'll
built.
discuss it a little bit more and
Then,
come up
okay,
with,
I got you, okay.
staff will come up with a
Okay, yeah, okay.
recommendation based on that.
All right.
Anything else? Ms. Redding?
It's wonderful to see all of this. It's been several years since we've had things to do this time of year due to COVID. And on behalf of everybody, I will apologize for my family, my husband's family's ability to really screw up things, because it's my understanding that that's part of the reason that Sunset and Salisbury looks the way it does as well.
Everybody's got folks,
And then, and just as a little, I don't know if anyone else saw the text from the Chamber of Commerce that we have a ribbon cutting tomorrow at the food place that has been coming soon for about a year and a half. So I think that'll be interesting at the Caribbean place up north of town. So, and have a good Christmas.
Yep. Mr. Burks?
And Merry Christmas to everyone. We had the best Christmas parade we've had in a long, well, at least 3 years. That was outstanding to see that many people that deep along the street. So that was really exciting. My wife and I stayed downtown for a long time at the table eating way too much food. She was running a tab on hot chocolate, so we had to stay. But it was encouraging. Someone mentioned earlier about how clean the city is. We left and the crews were out there cleaning the streets. You never know there were, how many people, 100,000 people downtown there? You never know there were 100,000 people downtown by the time we left the table at 9:30. So, great. Merry Christmas.
Well, I stood out there and watched them clean it.
Saw you with a broom.
I'm sorry, I got a cramp.
It was that broom.
You do anything about that?
No, you got to go up there to the other people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm glad we do have things to work with and items to attend to, and Merry Christmas to all.
Our grand marshal for our parade was Stephanie Quayle, a national recording artist and married to a hometown, one of our hometown heroes. And we invited her to be grand marshal, and she came in. We did a meet and greet at Sunset Theater prior to the parade, and probably had 150, 200 people file through the theater and pose for pictures, and she gave every one of them a bandana and an autographed CD. She was a hit, and I was told today that her husband kept saying, we need to move back to Asheboro. So anyway, it was nice to have her here, and the parade was nice. It was, I rode through twice, by the way.
We'll put them in the penthouse in the PNC Grand.
Yeah. You see what we got going on. I am proud to be mayor of Asheboro, and I appreciate all the hard work that John has done over the last few years, finding this funding for Trade Street and Acme McCreary and the soccer park and the baseball park. And we've got some great things coming forth over the next few years, and lots of opportunities. So, John, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for your kind words, and on behalf of all the staff, Mayor, we wish all the council and public Merry Christmas. All 355 of us. Plus or minus.
Welcome back, Debbie.
Thank you.
Out and about, and I just was gonna echo what Eddie had said about the cleanup, and it seems like an hour after parade ended, it seemed like it never had happened.
They finish quicker than they normally do, too.
Yep. And finally, it's not on our upcoming events, but I wanna wish you a happy early birthday, Mayor.
Thank you.
As long as they keep coming, right?
Just for the record, I'll be 70 on the 31st.
Welcome to the club, welcome to the club.
Hard to believe.
Time marches on, don't it?
Don't it?
That means it's starting my 23rd year.
Mr. Swiggers.
We had the pleasure of, as they were trying to locate our water meter, seeing some very diligent, hard work by city employees. Was talking to one of the plumbing contractors that's gonna try to hook everything up, whenever they find it. Very complimentary of the city, staff, inspections department, and everything else. He said that, you can't go to any other city, as we've all heard before, you can't go to any other city and find as good a working conditions as contractors find in Asheboro with our city staff. And I appreciate that very much, knowing that people want to come to Asheboro because of the hard work that they do.
You live in a new neighborhood. Why were they looking for your water meter?
It's gone. They can't find it.
We got him one though.
I still get a bill. Debbie sends me a bill every month, and I pay it.
That's in her job description.
That's right.
Just send everybody a bill whether they get a reading or not.
I pay it. And even this past month, it was my beginning reading and my ending reading was the same.
Clearly, you must have one of the new radio meters. Somebody put it in.
That's right.
He's been paying the minimum all this time, hasn't he?
Debbie?
All right.
You couldn't be estimating anything, could you?
The ordinance lets it go a year back.
So your landscaper covered it up.
I think they covered it up and then paved over it with the driveway.
I keep covering mine up, and they
And
keep.
they can't, and they can't find it with the little beeper thingy, and, they've already cut one hole in the driveway, and they're probably gonna come back, cut some more.
My goodness.
I think it was, well, you know, there's there's two houses and then the rest is
There
the
was
same.
2 developers on that job.
Yeah.
One not so good and one that was better.
The answer to Mr. Swear's question, where he is, what do you think it is? We don't know. We're gonna dig till we find it or put one in or something.
And we got guys that are paid to find them.
Yeah,
Oh, they
Supposed to
spent-
know where they are.
They've spent time out there.
yeah, they've spent several days.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'll just echo everyone's wishes for Merry Christmas to everybody, and, you know, the chamber could not do the parade and Christmas downtown without the city staff, cleaning, preparing, et cetera. So I'm just really appreciative of that. Also want to thank city staff for having staffed the land use development forums that we had. I know we all look forward to hearing about the results of those and just the plan. So I know that's coming. So just thank our planning department staff for that. And also wanted to mention your 25th anniversary of service on council and as mayor. So thank you for all you do.
Has it really been 25?
It was in the Randolph Hub.
So it must be true.
That's right, it was. Can't count that high. The future home of Full Moon Oyster Bar will be open tomorrow night for cider and cookies, if y'all wanna come by. We're ready to start building.
All right.
All right, so, thank you guys for being here. And, okay, and quite frankly, normally when people make a presentation and they're over, they leave. So we're impressed that you three would sit here and listen to all the rest of this.
I think we're all afraid of Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt.
Well, you know,
Good decision.
we've been accused of doing things behind people's back. So you're better off to sit here and watch.
But I know what went on.
All right, thank you very much.
There was never no chocolates in that box.
Hi.
I think you lived in